So today we're going to be making a video on how to bend and flare, double flare in my instance, double flare brake lines with the minimal tools. So I do have brake line benders and all that type of stuff, but this 3/16 line that I'm using, it's pretty small, so it's pretty easy. I want to show people how to bend it without needing any necessary tools. Just having maybe a cylinder or some things around you that you can use to bend around. Even using your leg. We used to do it like that back in the day. So pretty much what I've got set up here is I've got my 3/16 line. I've got 25 foot of it. I ain't gonna need all that, but just kind of show you there. This pack at Napa was just under 40 bucks for this, and I'm sure you could do a whole car with it. We've got a couple fittings, and I've got my flexible brake line for the rear. That, you know, is a part of the video, but not necessarily going to show you how to make it. The two main tools you're going to need is the flaring kit right here. So I bought this at O'Reilly, I believe, a couple years ago. I bought it for like 20, 30 bucks, something like that. And, you know, it kind of sucks to buy. You think, oh, I'm probably only going to use it once. But if you're into building cars like we are, I mean, I've actually used this tool a lot. I've had buddies that come and borrow this tool. So it's a pretty nice tool to have on hand because you never know when you're going to do it. And then you've got this little pipe cutter. I bought this over at Home Depot. You can buy it at any hardware store, anywhere that has plumbing supplies. So typically what they use these for is to cut copper piping for water lines. And so it goes all the way up from 3 millimeter to 22 millimeters. So I use this to cut the line. There's different ways you can cut this line, but you really want to use something like this. It doesn't leave burrs and it doesn't leave weird edges on your end of your flare here. So you want a really nice cut there when you go to flare the actual fitting, because if you don't, that can cause leaks later on and stuff like that. So yeah, we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna get started. This is a car, the 240, that we're gonna be doing it on. So I need to run a line that comes from my, they want to call it a pressure valve, but this is actually just kind of it's actually a brake valve for the 240. So I want to run a line that comes from here, and it's going to go all the way back to the rear end, and that controls both the rear brakes. So I'm going to make that line, kind of show you guys how to do it. We also are going to be making a couple lines. I'm actually going to be putting a line lock in this car, so we're going to put a line lock solenoid up in the top there, and we'll make a couple lines for that as well, and just kind of show you guys the whole process. Okay, so what I've done so far is I've actually just taken my line and I've kind of straightened it out. It's still got a little bit of bend to it, but you just kind of want to get some out of there and kind of determine, like I said, where you're going to start your first bend. So we know I'm going to have a flare right here on the edge, and I only need to come out about an inch or two coming out of the flare before we need to start our first bend, and I want a 90-degree bend there. So what you can do to make different bends on these without, like I said, without having any benders, is if you got anything laying around like this rear end right here, that's round. I've got an old exhaust pipe right here, that's round. And all determining on how sharp you want your bend, you know, smaller piece of pipe, thicker piece of pipe, things like that can change the 90-degree bend and the shape of it. So anything you got laying around that's round, you can actually use to bend over the pipe. So pretty much all I'm going to do is just kind of lay this over there, right about where I want my bend, and I'm just going to use my hands to really work it over. Right. So I'm just going to stand on the pipe, kind of hold it down there, pick my spot where I want to bend it. Like I said, just use my hands, bend it over. That looks like a 90-degree bend there. Check that out. That's a pretty nice bend. I don't know if you could do that with a bender. Usually the bender will put little kinks in it, but I'm happy with that. So next, I'm gonna go in for my 90. I'm gonna take a tape measure and measure out how far I need to make my next bend. Okay, so I went and measured from the outside of our bend here to the outside of the bend over here is gonna be 9 inches. So I'm gonna mark it at 9 inches. It's technically 9.5, but after you make your bend, there's gonna be a little bit of a gain in inches there. So I'm gonna mark it at 9 and roughly gonna be around 9.5 when I'm done. Depending on the radius of your bend, what size pipe you use, the amount of distance, you know, from 9, 9.5, things like that are always gonna be different. So I'm just gonna make a little reference line right there. You know, this is my personal vehicle, so it doesn't need to be show quality, it's a race car. If I was building somebody else's car and, you know, needed to be a lot more show quality, things like that, I'd get way more precise with it. I'd have my pipe bender and all that other stuff. So next, we know we gotta come up out there, and now we're gonna do a 90-degree bend to, I would say, my right on this. So definitely pay attention to which way you're bending your pipe. You don't wanna get your bend done and realize that you did it the wrong direction or things like that. It's not too big of a deal. If you bend it the wrong way, this pipe flexes pretty well, bend it back and start over. What you don't wanna do is put a kink in this. If you put a kink in your pipe, that's when you start over. Cut it off and start over. Kink in the line will definitely hinder your braking ability, and if maybe cut off the brake fluid altogether, and you'll never get fluid back to your rear brakes. There we go, another bend dinner. So I'm just gonna double check my measurement, see if I'm in the ballpark of where I needed to be. From end to end. Pretty much right at 9 inches. Not too bad. So pretty much that's so on and so forth. That's how you're gonna make your bends and do your measurements. So I'm gonna go ahead and just keep working on the car, get all the bends done, and I will get back to you guys here in a minute once we've got this line pretty much to the rear end. All right, so now that we've got our line all bent, we are gonna go ahead and start flaring. So first things first, before you flare, make sure you get your fitting on. Big common mistake. If you don't put that fitting on your line before you flare, you have it on, you'll never get it on, you have to cut it, redo it. So now that we've got that guy just slipped on there, what you do is you're gonna slip your line. And so I've got this little thing set up in the vise. You don't have to have it in the vise, but it just makes it a little bit easier, a little more hands-free type of situation. And then you get your little dies. The kit comes with a whole bunch of different dies for different size pipe. And in double flaring, what you want to do, come a little bit closer, Trey, is you see the die here. You want the end of your pipe to be the same height as the die there. Once you got that in, clamp her down. You want to kind of get it nice and tight so that the tube don't slip through. Then from there you're going to take your little die and you're just going to slip it down in the hole. And then take your, I'm going to call it a C-clamp. Put your clamp. And you're just going to run it down on there. Just like so. Take your wrench and clamp it down. And you'll see the die kind of hit the bottom there. Once it hits the bottom, you don't have to force it too much. You're pretty much there. This tubing bends pretty easy, so what you don't want to do is over clamp it. If you do over clamp, it can break your tubing. So now that we've got the first part of the flare done, we're done with our little die. And you're just going to take your C-clamp again, and it's got a really nice little pointy edge on the clamp there. You're going to run that back down inside the hole. And then this is the one you don't want to get all violent with and go too much on, because this is where the flare can break. Once it starts giving you a bunch of pressure back, you know you're pretty good. I think that's good there. We'll take this clamp off, take a look at it, make sure the sealing surface is good. That looks pretty good to me. I'm happy with that. So you can kind of see down in there, everything looks good. There's no sharp edges. I can run my finger across it. We'll go tray. I'll just pull this out so you guys can kind of see what that looks like. And this process is called a double flare. There's different types of flares that you can do. There's a single flare, a double flare, and then there's a couple other ones that I'm not too sure about myself. But let's take a look at this bad boy. Looks good. And your fitting fits all the way up to it. Yeah. Double flare, guys. Alright, guys. I had this bad boy all clamped up, and I almost did it. Exactly what I told you guys not to do. I almost forgot my fitting. Luckily, I realized it right before I got done clamping it down. Got the fitting back on there. So we've got our line finished. I'm happy with it. It looks good. So that's going to be the end of our video, guys. I appreciate y'all watching. I hope you guys learned something. I hope that this gave you a little bit of motivation to do it yourself. It is super easy, just a few tools to do it. You know, it sounds scary, it sounds daunting type of thing. It is your brake system. You know, brakes slow you down. They stop you from getting in crashes and things like that. And it can be a scary situation, but it's really not that hard to do. And definitely jump on the project yourself if you got the means and the tools. So if you guys did learn something, we'd appreciate it if you guys got on there, like, comment, subscribe. If you guys got any tips or tricks as well, put them down in the comments, put them in there, you know, for other people to see as well. We're all about learning here, so we appreciate you guys watching. See you in the next one.